Ex-husband steals single mom's house. Her ex-husband smiled like he'd already won while the police officer told her it was just a civil matter. Her house, stolen. Her children, sleeping in a minivan. She had nothing left but her phone and one desperate idea. She recorded a video with shaking hands and posted it online, praying someone, anyone, might help. What she didn't know was that a powerful man 3 counties away was about to see her address and remember a debt he owed to her dead father. And Vincent Romano never forgot a promise. Before we dive into this intense story, drop a comment right now telling me what time it is and where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get absolutely wild. You don't want to miss what happens next. Lauren Hayes tried her key one more time, knowing it wouldn't work but unable to accept the reality. The lock was different. New. Changed. She stepped back from the front door of the house she'd lived in for 8 years, the house her father had left her, and felt the world tilt sideways. "Mommy, why can't we go inside?" 7-year-old Olivia tugged at her jacket, her voice small and confused. "Just a minute, baby." Lauren's heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. They'd been gone 4 days. Just 4 days visiting her sister in Nevada. A cheap road trip because she couldn't afford anything else. For days, and somehow everything had changed. 5-year-old Noah pressed his face against the living room window. "Mom, there's someone in our house." That's when the door opened and Lauren's ex-husband stepped onto her porch like he owned the place. Because apparently, now he did. Derek Hayes looked exactly the same. Same cold blue eyes, same smug expression that had made their marriage a nightmare. But now he wore it with an additional layer of satisfaction that made Lauren's blood run cold. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone dripping with false courtesy. Lauren's mind went completely blank. "Derek, what are you doing in my house?" "Your house." Derek's smile widened. "I think you mean my house. I've been living here for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Lauren's voice cracked. "I was here Monday. This is my house. My father left it to me." "Actually." Derek pulled out his phone, scrolling through documents with infuriating calm. "According to this quitclaim deed you signed, you transferred ownership to me 3 months ago. Must have slipped your mind. I never signed anything." Lauren's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. "I would never." "Well, the notary stamp says otherwise." Derek leaned against the doorframe. "And the county recorder's office has it on file. So technically, legally, I own this property. You're trespassing." Olivia started crying. Noah wrapped his arms around his sister, both children sensing something terrible was happening but not understanding what. Lauren fumbled with her phone, dialing 911 with fingers that felt numb. 2 patrol cars arrived within 15 minutes. Officer Marcus Webb, a veteran cop with gray at his temples, and Officer Amy Chun, younger but sharp-eyed, took statements from both parties. Lauren showed them everything. Her driver's license with this address, utility bills on her phone, photos of her kids playing in the backyard from last week, her father's will clearly leaving her the property. Then Derek produced his paperwork. A quitclaim deed with what appeared to be Lauren's signature, notarized, and filed with the county. Documents showing he'd changed the locks for security purposes. Even a lease agreement he claimed proved he'd been living there. Officer Webb's face told Lauren everything she needed to know before he even spoke. "Ma'am, I understand this is distressing," Webb said carefully. "But legally, this has become a civil property dispute. He has documents showing ownership transfer. Even if they're fraudulent, we can't make that determination in the field." "But it's fake." Lauren's voice rose to a near scream. "I never signed that deed. He forged my signature." "I believe you," Webb said quietly, and Lauren heard the frustration in his voice. "But we can't physically remove him without a court order. You'll need to file a lawsuit, prove the deed is fraudulent, get a judge to rule in your favor." "How long will that take?" Officer Chin shifted uncomfortably. "Could be weeks. Maybe months depending on the court backlog and if he contests it." "Months?" Lauren felt like she was drowning. "Where am I supposed to live? I have 2 kids." Derek spoke up from the porch, his voice laced with mock sympathy. "Maybe you should have thought about that before abandoning the property. Now, officers, can you please ask her to remove herself? She's making me uncomfortable." Officer Webb's jaw clenched, but he turned back to Lauren. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you need to leave the property. If you don't, he can have you arrested for trespassing." "This is insane." Lauren looked between the officers, desperate. He's my ex-husband. We've been divorced for 3 years. He's doing this to hurt me. That's defamation, Derek said smoothly. I have witnesses who'll testify we've had an amicable relationship. This is purely a property matter. Webb pulled Lauren aside, his voice low. Listen to me. Document everything. Get a lawyer immediately. File an emergency motion. But right now, if you stay here, you're the one going to jail, not him. My stuff, Lauren whispered. All our belongings are inside. Already took care of that, Derek called out. Your junk's in the side yard. Didn't want clutter in my house. Lauren walked around the side of the house and stopped cold. Black trash bags, dozens of them, split open and scattered across the grass. Her grandmother's quilt trampled in the dirt. Olivia's drawings ripped and rain-soaked. Her father's military medals bent and tarnished. Everything she owned treated like garbage. Olivia saw the bags and began sobbing uncontrollably. Noah stood frozen, his small face blank with shock that no 5-year-old should have to process. Lauren dropped to her knees and started grabbing what she could, shoving items back into bags while tears streamed down her face. The officers helped silently, their expressions tight with restrained anger at a system that could let this happen. By sunset, Lauren had loaded everything into her 2010 Honda CR-V. Her entire life crammed into one vehicle with a cracked windshield and 190,000 miles. She looked back at her father's house one more time and saw Derek watching from the window, smiling. That night, parked under a broken streetlight 4 blocks away, Lauren sat in the driver's seat while her children slept in the back, curled together under her jacket. The temperature was dropping. She'd spent her last $30 on gas. She had maybe $200 in her account and no idea how she'd afford a lawyer. Her phone screen illuminated her tear-stained face as she opened Facebook. Her hands were still trembling. She hit record. Hi, I'm Lauren Hayes, and today my ex-husband stole my house. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through, showing the trash bags piled in her car, panning to her sleeping children. The police can't help. He has fake documents. I might not get my home back for months. I don't know what to do. If anyone knows a lawyer or has advice or... She wiped her eyes. I'm just lost. She posted it to the Riverside Community Forum, a local group with maybe 4,000 members, and set her phone down, not daring to hope. Within minutes, comments appeared. Shares multiplied. The count climbed. 50, 100, 200. Lauren watched numbly, too exhausted to feel anything but a dim flicker of something that might have been hope if she'd had any energy left to recognize it. She didn't know that 150 miles away, in an office that smelled of expensive whiskey and old money, a man named Vincent Romano was about to see her video. She didn't know her father had saved Vincent's life 15 years ago. And she definitely didn't know that by sunrise, her ex-husband's smile was going to disappear permanently. Vincent Romano didn't do social media, but his daughter did, and she had a habit of showing him things she thought he needed to see. Dad, you need to watch this, Sophia said, walking into his office at 2 a.m., holding up her phone. At 23, she was studying law at Columbia and had her father's instinct for injustice. Vincent looked up from the contract he was reviewing, reading glasses perched on his nose. Sophia, it's 2 in the morning. What's so important? This. She played Lauren's video. Vincent watched without expression, but Sophia knew her father well enough to see the subtle tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched when Lauren showed her crying children. Where is this? Vincent asked quietly. Riverside County. The address is in the comments. 847 Maple Grove Drive. Vincent went absolutely still. Show me that address again. Sophia pulled it up. Vincent stood abruptly, moving to a filing cabinet in the corner of his office. He pulled out a folder from 15 years ago, one he'd kept for reasons he couldn't quite explain. Inside was a photograph, Vincent, younger, lying in a hospital bed, and a man in military uniform standing beside him smiling. Thomas Hayes, the man who'd pulled Vincent from a burning car after a business rival had tried to kill him. The man who'd stayed with him in the hospital, who'd testified when Vincent's enemies went to trial, who'd refused any reward except Vincent's promise to help someone who needs it someday. Thomas Hayes had lived at 847 Maple Grove Drive. Get Marcus on the phone, Vincent said, his voice deadly calm. And wake up everyone. I want every man we have ready to move by dawn. Dad, what's going on? Vincent looked at his daughter, and she saw something in his eyes she rarely witnessed. Personal investment. That woman's father saved my life. Now some piece of trash thinks he can steal from his daughter. Vincent's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. We're going to teach him what happens when you cross the wrong family. Vincent Romano's phone buzzed exactly 14 times in the next hour. Each call was short, direct, and left no room for questions. By 4 a.m., 32 men were awake, getting dressed, checking weapons they wouldn't need, but carried anyway out of habit. Vincent wasn't calling them to war. He was calling them to deliver a message. And Vincent's messages were always received loud and clear. Marcus Vitali arrived at Vincent's estate at 5 a.m. sharp, his second-in-command instincts telling him this wasn't routine business. He found Vincent in his study. The photograph of Thomas Hayes spread across the desk alongside printouts of Lauren's Facebook post, property records, and a background check on Derek Hayes that was already 3 pages deep. Tell me, Marcus said, closing the door behind him. Vincent slid the photo across the desk. Thomas Hayes. 15 years ago, I was meeting with the Castellano family about territory disputes. Someone planted a bomb in my car. Thomas was driving past when it went off, pulled me out while the car was still burning, stayed with me until the ambulance arrived. Testified in court even though it put a target on his back. Marcus studied the photo. He's military. Was. Army Ranger. Died 4 years ago. Heart attack. Vincent's voice was tight with old grief. I went to the funeral. Met his daughter Lauren. She was devastated, trying to hold it together for her kids. I told her if she ever needed anything, to call me. She didn't call. She doesn't know who I am. To her, I was just another friend of her father's paying respects. Vincent pulled up Lauren's video on his laptop. Watch this. Marcus watched in silence, his expression darkening with each passing second. When Derek's voice came through, mocking and smug, Marcus's hands clenched into fists. The ex-husband, Marcus said flatly. He forged documents to steal her house while she was gone. 4 days. She was gone 4 days, and he moved in like a parasite. Vincent's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. Her father's house. The house Thomas left his daughter and grandchildren. And this piece of garbage thinks he's clever using the legal system as a weapon. What's the play? Marcus asked. Vincent leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. We do this smart. Legal where we can be, creative where we need to be. I want full background on Derek Hayes. Every debt, every crime, every secret he thinks is buried. I want to know who he talks to, where he goes, what he's afraid of. Already started. Marcus pulled out his tablet, showing Vincent preliminary findings. Derek Hayes, 34, works as a contractor when he works at all. 2 DUIs, suspended license twice, history of fraud charges that got dismissed. Divorced Lauren 3 years ago after she filed a restraining order for domestic violence. Vincent's expression went from cold to arctic. He hit her. Multiple times according to the police reports. She dropped the charges because he threatened to fight for custody of the kids, and she was terrified of losing them. Marcus scrolled through more documents. After the divorce, he's been in and out of trouble. Owes money to at least 3 different people, including some loan sharks who aren't known for patience. He's desperate. Vincent stood, pacing to the window. Outside, dawn was breaking over his estate, painting the sky in shades of blood orange. Desperate men do stupid things. He thought stealing her house would solve his problems. It's going to create much bigger ones, Marcus said with grim satisfaction. Vincent turned back to his second. Here's what I want. First, lawyer. The best property attorney in California. I don't care what it costs. File emergency motions, injunctions, whatever it takes to get Lauren back in that house legally. On it. Second, public pressure. This video has 4,200 shares now. Let's make it national. I have contacts at major news networks. This story should be on every channel by tonight. Marcus nodded, taking notes. What else? Third, and this is where it gets interesting. Vincent's smile was sharp and cold. I want to visit Derek Hayes personally. With enough of our people that he understands exactly how much trouble he's in. We stay legal, we stay clean, but we make sure he knows that stealing from Thomas Hayes' daughter was the biggest mistake of his worthless life. How many men? All of them. I want every soldier we have lining that street. I want Derek to look out his window and see an army. Vincent's voice was steel. And I want Lauren to know that her father's friends don't forget, and we don't abandon family. By 7 a.m., Vincent's organization was in full motion. His lawyer, Richard Chun, was already filing emergency motions with the county court. His media contact, a producer at a major news network, was pitching the story to the morning show. And 32 men in dark suits were receiving addresses and instructions. At 8 a.m., Vincent made a call he'd been putting off. He dialed the number Lauren had listed on her Facebook profile, knowing she probably wouldn't answer an unknown number. It went to voicemail. Ms. Hayes, my name is Vincent Romano. I was a friend of your father's. I just saw your video, and I want to help. I'll be at your property this afternoon. Don't worry about anything. This is going to be handled. He paused. Your father saved my life once. Consider this repayment of that debt. He hung up, then turned to Marcus. Get the cars ready. We move at noon. Lauren woke to her phone exploding with notifications. She'd managed maybe 2 hours of sleep, her neck cramped from the driver's seat, her body aching from stress and exhaustion. The phone screen showed 6:47 a.m. and 1,847 notifications. Her video had been shared over 8,000 times. Lauren scrolled through comments with shaking hands, her children still sleeping in the back seat. Some messages were supportive, others were skeptical, but several stood out. My sister's a lawyer. Sending you her info now. Channel 9 News wants to interview you. Check your DMs. Starting a GoFundMe for legal fees. Link in comments. The GoFundMe had raised $4,200 overnight. Lauren covered her mouth, suppressing a sob that would wake Olivia and Noah. Then she saw the voicemail notification. Unknown number. She almost deleted it, but something made her listen. Vincent Romano's voice was calm, authoritative, and somehow familiar even though she couldn't place it. A friend of her father's. Coming this afternoon. Don't worry about anything. Lauren played it again, trying to remember if her father had ever mentioned someone named Vincent. The name stirred something vague, a memory of the funeral maybe, but exhaustion made everything fuzzy. At 9 a.m., she had her children awake and fed with gas station breakfast sandwiches she couldn't really afford. At 10 a.m., she met with a legal aid attorney who'd responded to her video. The news was both encouraging and devastating. The quitclaim deed is obviously fraudulent, the attorney explained. But proving that in court takes time. I can file an emergency motion based on fraud, but even expedited, we're looking at 4 to 6 weeks. What am I supposed to do for 6 weeks? Lauren's voice broke. The GoFundMe will help. And there are shelters. I'm not taking my kids to a shelter. Lauren's voice was firm despite her tears. We'll sleep in the car before I do that. At 11:30 a.m., Lauren drove past her house, unable to stay away despite knowing it would hurt. Derek's truck was in the driveway. He was inside her house, probably eating food from her kitchen, sleeping in her bed, living her life while she was homeless. Then she saw the cars, black SUVs, at least 8 of them, parked in a coordinated line down the street. Men in dark suits stood beside them, not threatening but unmistakably present. Professional, organized, dangerous in a way that made the air feel electric. Lauren's heart hammered as she slowed down. What was happening? A man stepped forward from the lead vehicle, late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, and eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. He looked directly at her car, seemed to recognize her somehow, and nodded once. A gesture that said, "We've got this." Vincent Romano had arrived, and Derek Hayes was about to learn what it meant to steal from the wrong family. Inside the house, Derek was eating cereal at Lauren's kitchen table, scrolling through social media and laughing at the comments on her video. People were so gullible, falling for her sob story. Like he was the bad guy for taking what was rightfully his through legal paperwork. Sure, he'd forged her signature, but who could prove it? The system was on his side. Then he glanced out the window, and his spoon clattered into the bowl. The street was lined with vehicles and men who looked like they'd stepped out of a movie about organized crime. 30, maybe 40 of them, all watching his house with the patience of predators. Derek's phone rang. Unknown number. His hands shook as he answered. Derek Hayes. Vincent's voice came through calm and cold. Look out your front window. Derek did. He saw Vincent standing on the sidewalk, phone to his ear, eyes locked on the house. Who the hell are you? Derek tried to sound tough, but his voice cracked. I'm the man who's going to make your life very difficult if you don't vacate that property immediately. Vincent's tone never changed, stayed perfectly level. You stole from the wrong woman, Derek. Lauren's father was a friend of mine. A very good friend. And I take care of my friends' families. This is my house. I have legal documents. You have forgeries. And by tomorrow morning, every news station in California will know it. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll be arrested for fraud. By tomorrow evening, you'll understand that the legal system you tried to manipulate works much faster when the right people make phone calls. Derek's face went pale. You're threatening me. I'm promising you. Vincent's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. You have 24 hours to vacate that property voluntarily. If you're still there tomorrow, things get significantly worse for you. And Derek? I know about the money you owe. I know about the loan sharks. I know about every crime you've committed. Imagine what happens when I share that information with people who care even less about legal processes than you do. The line went dead. Derek looked out the window at 40 men who weren't moving, weren't leaving, were just waiting. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Clock's ticking. For the first time since this started, Derek Hayes felt genuinely afraid. Derek Hayes spent the next 6 hours learning what real fear felt like. The men outside didn't leave. They didn't threaten. They didn't even approach the property. They just existed in a coordinated, disciplined presence that made every minute inside the house feel like being watched by wolves. At 2 p.m., a news van pulled up. Channel 9. A reporter named Jessica Morales stepped out with a cameraman, and suddenly Derek's theft was being broadcast to 3 million viewers across Southern California. We're here at 847 Maple Grove Drive where a shocking story of alleged property fraud has unfolded, Jessica reported, standing directly in front of Derek's stolen house. Lauren Hayes claims her ex-husband forged documents to steal her home while she was away visiting family. Lauren, thank you for speaking with us. Lauren stood beside the reporter, her children safely with her sister who'd driven down that morning. She looked exhausted but determined, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to break through. My father left me this house. He was a veteran, a good man who worked his whole life to give us security. And my ex-husband took advantage of a weekend trip to forge my signature and steal everything my dad built. Lauren's voice cracked. The police say it's a civil matter. But this isn't civil. This is theft. This is a man using the legal system as a weapon to hurt me and my children. The camera panned to the men in dark suits lining the street. Jessica's voice took on a note of intrigue. And we understand you've received support from some unexpected allies? My father had friends I didn't know about, Lauren said carefully. Good people who believe in justice. Inside the house, Derek watched the broadcast on his phone, his stomach churning. The comments section was exploding, thousands of people calling for his arrest, sharing his photo, digging into his background. Someone had posted his DUI mugshots. Another person found his suspended contractor's license. His phone number was leaked, and it started ringing nonstop with threats and curses. At 3 p.m., Derek's lawyer called. The one he'd paid $3,000 to help forge the documents. I'm withdrawing from your case, the lawyer said without preamble. Effective immediately. You can't do that. I paid you. That money's being returned. I don't represent criminals in fraud cases, especially not ones this public. The lawyer's voice was tight. And Derek? Don't contact me again. Ever. The line went dead. At 4 p.m., the loan shark Derek owed $15,000 called. Tommy Rizzo was not a patient man, and he'd just seen Derek on the news. You got money for lawyers and stealing houses, but you can't pay me? Tommy's voice was venomous. You got 1 week, Derek. 1 week, or we come collect. And we don't care about your legal problems. Derek's hands were shaking so badly, he could barely hold the phone. Everything was collapsing. The carefully constructed plan that had seemed so clever 3 days ago was disintegrating in real time. At 5 p.m., Vincent made his move. He walked up to the front door with Marcus beside him and knocked. Not pounded, not threatened. Just knocked with the calm confidence of someone who knew the door would open. Derek answered with sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes darting between Vincent and the 30 men still positioned throughout the street. We need to talk, Vincent said quietly. May I come in? Derek wanted to say no, wanted to slam the door, but something in Vincent's eyes told him that would be a very bad idea. He stepped aside. Vincent entered the house that Thomas Hayes had built, looking around at the space where his old friend had raised his daughter. He saw Lauren's family photos still on the walls, Derek having been too lazy or too stupid to remove them. He saw children's drawings on the refrigerator, a little girl's backpack in the corner. "Nice house," Vincent said, his voice dripping with contempt. Thomas worked 30 years to pay off this mortgage. Raised his daughter here after his wife died. Built a life, a legacy. He turned to Derek. "And you thought you could just take it? I have legal documents. You have forgeries." Vincent's voice cut like steel. "And you have about 6 hours of freedom left before those documents get you arrested for fraud, identity theft, and about 8 other charges my lawyers are currently filing." Derek's face went pale. "You can't prove the documents are fake." "Actually, we already did." Marcus stepped forward, holding a tablet. "We had a forensic document examiner analyze the quitclaim deed. The signature doesn't match Lauren's actual signature. The notary stamp is from a notary who died 2 years ago, and the filing date coincides with when you accessed Lauren's personal documents during your last custody exchange." He turned the tablet around, showing Derek a detailed report that destroyed every lie he'd built. "The district attorney received this report 1 hour ago," Marcus continued, "along with security footage from the county recorder's office showing you filing the forged documents, and phone records proving you called a known forger 3 days before the deed was created." Derek felt the room spinning. "I want a lawyer. Good luck finding one." Vincent moved closer, his presence overwhelming. "Because by tomorrow morning, every lawyer in 3 counties will know your name and know you're radioactive. No one wants to defend the man who stole a veteran's house from his widowed daughter." "What do you want?" Derek's voice came out as a whisper. Vincent's smile was cold and sharp. "I want you to vacate this property immediately. Tonight. Right now. You take whatever you brought. You leave everything that belongs to Lauren, and you disappear. And if I don't, then tomorrow, you get arrested on fraud charges that carry 5 to 7 years. The loan sharks you owe money to receive detailed information about your whereabouts. And every news station in California continues running stories about Derek Hayes, the man who stole from a veteran's daughter." Vincent's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. "Your life becomes a living hell, Derek. Every single day." Derek's mind raced through options that didn't exist. He had no lawyer, no money, no way out. The forgeries were exposed. The news was everywhere. Tommy Rizzo wanted his money, and 40 men outside were waiting for Vincent's signal. "How do I know you won't come after me anyway?" Derek asked desperately. "Because I don't waste energy on trash once it's been taken out." Vincent straightened his jacket. "You leave tonight. You stay away from Lauren and her children forever, and you become invisible. That's the deal. The only deal. I need time to." "You have 2 hours." Vincent checked his watch. "It's 5:15 now. By 7:15, you're gone or Marcus here calls the police. Your choice." Vincent walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and Derek? If you ever contact Lauren again, if you ever come near her children, if you so much as drive down this street, my men won't call the police. They'll handle it personally. Do you understand?" Derek nodded, his throat too tight to speak. "Good." Vincent opened the door. 2 hours. Clock's ticking. Outside, Vincent found Lauren sitting in her car 3 houses down, watching everything unfold. He walked over, and she rolled down her window, her eyes red from crying but alert with cautious hope. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Vincent Romano. I knew your father." Recognition flickered across Lauren's face. "The funeral. You were there. You told me if I needed anything. I meant it." Vincent pulled out his phone, showing her the forensic report. "Your ex-husband's forgeries have been exposed. He's leaving tonight. By tomorrow morning, you'll have emergency court orders restoring your legal possession. By tomorrow afternoon, he'll be arrested if he hasn't already fled the state." Lauren's hands flew to her mouth. "How did you do this so fast? Your father saved my life 15 years ago, pulled me from a burning car, stayed with me in the hospital, testified in court when dangerous people wanted me dead." Vincent's voice softened. "He never asked for anything in return. Just told me to help someone who needed it someday. Today's that day. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. You need to get your kids and go to a hotel tonight. A nice one. Here." Vincent handed her an envelope. "This covers a month of hotel stays, food, whatever you need while we finalize everything legally. Don't argue. It's handled." Lauren opened the envelope and saw $5,000 in cash. She started crying again, this time from overwhelming relief. At 7:10 p.m., Derek Hayes loaded the last of his belongings into his truck. He'd taken only what he'd brought: clothes, a laptop, some tools. Everything else belonged to Lauren, and Vincent's men had made very clear that stealing anything more would have immediate consequences. He pulled out of the driveway with 40 pairs of eyes watching him go, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, his mind already planning which state he'd run to where Tommy Rizzo and Vincent Romano couldn't find him. As his taillights disappeared down the street, Marcus turned to Vincent. Think he'll stay gone? If he's smart. Vincent looked at Lauren's house. Lights off, waiting for its real owner to come home. If he's stupid, he'll come back and learn why that's a fatal mistake. At 8 p.m., Lauren Hayes walked back into her father's house with Olivia and Noah holding her hands. The locks had been changed back by Vincent's people. The utilities were still running. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, minus the trash bags Derek had created. Vincent's cleaning crew had already been through, removing any trace of Derek's presence. Fresh flowers sat on the kitchen table with a note. Welcome home. Your father would be proud. Vincent. Lauren sank onto her couch and pulled her children close, breathing in the familiar smell of home she'd thought she'd lost forever. Olivia was already running to her room to find her stuffed animals. Noah was checking if his action figures were still under his bed. For the first time in 4 days, Lauren felt like she could breathe. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Court hearing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Emergency motion to vacate fraudulent deed. My lawyer will meet you there. Don't worry about costs. Everything's handled. Vincent. Lauren typed back with shaking hands. Why are you doing all this for someone you barely know? The response came immediately. Because your father didn't hesitate to help a stranger. Neither do I. Lauren closed her eyes, feeling tears stream down her face again. But these were different tears. Not despair. Not fear. Gratitude. Relief. Hope. Her father's friends had kept their promise. And Derek Hayes had learned that some debts, even 15 years old, always get paid. The courtroom at 10 a.m. was packed. News cameras lined the hallway outside. Reporters jockeyed for position. The story of Lauren Hayes and her stolen house had gone viral overnight. National news, trending on every social media platform, millions of people demanding justice. Lauren sat at the plaintiff's table with Richard Chun, Vincent's attorney, a man whose reputation preceded him like thunder. He wore a suit that cost more than Lauren's car and carried a briefcase that looked like it could survive a nuclear blast. Derek wasn't there. His court-appointed attorney, a nervous young man named Kevin Mills who'd drawn the short straw that morning, sat alone at the defense table looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a stern woman in her 60s who'd been on the bench for 30 years and had seen every con imaginable. She took one look at the packed courtroom and the media presence and knew this case was about to make headlines. This is an emergency hearing on the matter of Hayes versus Hayes, Judge Morrison said, settling into her seat. Plaintiff is seeking to vacate a quitclaim deed allegedly obtained through fraud. Mr. Chun, you have 15 minutes. Make them count. Richard Chun stood with the calm confidence of someone who'd never lost a case. He actually tried to win. Your Honor, this isn't just fraud. This is systematic identity theft, forgery, and abuse of the legal system to terrorize a single mother and her children. He pulled up documents on the courtroom's display screen. This is the quitclaim deed filed by Derek Hayes claiming Lauren Hayes voluntarily transferred her property to him. Notice the signature. The screen showed Lauren's alleged signature, shaky, uneven, clearly not her actual handwriting. This is Lauren's real signature from her driver's license, her mortgage documents, her children's school records. Chun displayed them side by side. Even a cursory examination shows they don't match. But we didn't stop there. He pulled up the forensic analysis. We hired Dr. Michael Park, one of the nation's foremost forensic document examiners. His analysis confirms the signature is a forgery. The notary stamp belongs to a notary public who died in 2023. The filing date coincides with when Mr. Hayes had access to Ms. Hayes's personal documents during a custody exchange. Judge Morrison leaned forward, studying the documents with sharp eyes. Mr. Mills, does your client dispute these findings? Kevin Mills stood reluctantly. Your Honor, my client, he's not present today. I can see that. Why not? I believe he's left the state, Your Honor. I've been unable to reach him since yesterday evening. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Morrison's expression darkened. Your client fled? While facing fraud charges. It appears so, Your Honor. That's very interesting timing. Judge Morrison turned back to Chun. Continue. Your Honor, we're also presenting criminal referrals to the district attorney. Chun pulled up more documents. Security footage from the county recorder's office shows Mr. Hayes filing these documents. Phone records prove he contacted a known forger, Michael Stevens, 3 days before the deed was created. Bank records show he paid Stevens $3,000, money he obtained by emptying Ms. Hayes's joint savings account before their divorce was finalized. Lauren's hands clenched in her lap. She'd wondered where that money went. Additionally, Chun continued, his voice taking on an edge of righteous anger. We have testimony from Ms. Hayes's neighbors who witnessed Mr. Hayes breaking into the property, changing locks, and discarding the family's belongings like trash. We have medical records documenting the stress-induced panic attacks Ms. Hayes suffered. And we have 2 terrified children who spent 4 nights sleeping in a minivan because their father decided theft was easier than paying child support. Judge Morrison's face was carved from stone. Mr. Mills, I'm going to ask you one more time. Does your client dispute any of these findings? Kevin Mills looked at the mountain of evidence, at the forensic reports, at the security footage, and made the only smart decision of his morning. No, Your Honor. I don't believe we can dispute these findings. Then here's my ruling. Judge Morrison's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. The quitclaim deed filed by Derek Hayes is hereby vacated and declared fraudulent. Lauren Hayes is restored as the sole legal owner of the property at 847 Maple Grove Drive. All of Mr. Hayes's possessions remaining on the property are forfeit. He is permanently barred from the property and from contacting Ms. Hayes or her children. She signed the order with forceful strokes. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for immediate criminal prosecution. Identity theft, forgery, fraud, that's 5 to 7 years minimum if convicted. And given that Mr. Hayes fled jurisdiction, I'm issuing a warrant for his arrest. Lauren covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. It was over. Actually over. Ms. Hayes, Judge Morrison said, her voice softening slightly. I'm sorry this happened to you. The system failed you when those officers said this was just a civil matter. This was never civil. This was criminal from the start. You have your house back. You have your legal rights restored. And Mr. Hayes will face consequences for what he did. Thank you, Lauren whispered. Thank you so much. As they left the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Lauren gave a brief statement with Richard Chun beside her, her voice stronger than she'd felt in days. I want to thank everyone who shared my story, who donated to help with legal fees, who believed me when the system didn't. And I want to thank Vincent Romano and his people for standing up for my family when we had nowhere else to turn. My father always said good people exist. They showed up when I needed them most. The footage aired on every major network that evening. Lauren's story became a rallying cry for reforming squatter laws and property fraud protections. Legislators started drafting new bills. Police departments began retraining officers on how to identify fraudulent property claims. And Derek Hayes became a cautionary tale. He made it as far as Arizona before the warrant caught up with him. Highway Patrol pulled him over for a broken taillight and ran his license. He was arrested on the side of Route 10, extradited back to California, and charged with 16 separate crimes. His trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was so overwhelming that even his public defender advised him to take a plea deal. He got 6 years in state prison, followed by 10 years probation, and was ordered to pay Lauren $50,000 in restitution, money he'd never have, but the judgment stood anyway. Tommy Rizzo, the loan shark, heard about Derek's arrest and decided the $15,000 wasn't worth the hassle of waiting. He wrote it off as a loss, with interest to be collected if Derek ever showed his face again. 3 months later, Lauren stood in her living room watching Olivia and Noah play with toys that had been rescued from the trash bags. The house felt like home again. The locks had been changed. The utilities were current. And every night, Lauren tucked her children into their own beds instead of a minivan. Vincent came by one evening, unannounced, carrying a wrapped package. Lauren invited him in, still somewhat intimidated by this man who'd mobilized an army to save her family. I wanted to give you this, Vincent said, handing her the package. Inside was the photograph from 15 years ago, Vincent in the hospital bed, her father standing beside him smiling. Your father was a hero, Lauren. Not just because he pulled me from that car, but but because he didn't think twice about helping a stranger. He saw someone in trouble and acted. Vincent's voice was thick with emotion. You're just like him. You could have given up, could have accepted defeat, but you fought for your kids, for your home, for your father's legacy. Lauren studied the photograph, seeing her father's face, that familiar smile she missed every single day. I never knew about this. He never told me he saved someone's life. That was Thomas. He didn't do good deeds for recognition. He did them because it was right. Vincent moved toward the door. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. You're family now. And I protect family. After he left, Lauren hung the photograph on the wall beside her father's military portrait. Two men who'd saved lives. Two men who'd understood that power meant nothing if you didn't use it to protect people. That night, as Lauren tucked Olivia and Noah into bed, Olivia asked, Mommy, are the bad men going to come back? No, baby. They're gone. And we have good people watching over us now. Lauren kissed her daughter's forehead. Grandpa's friends. They're making sure we're safe. I wish I could have met Grandpa, Noah said quietly. He would have loved you so much, Lauren said, her voice thick with emotion. And he would be so proud of how brave you both were these past few weeks. As her children drifted to sleep, Lauren stood in the doorway of their room, watching them breathe easy for the first time since this nightmare began. She thought about her father, about Vincent, about the 40 men who'd lined the street without being asked, just because it was the right thing to do. Debt paid, Vincent had said. But Lauren knew better. This wasn't about repaying a debt. This was about honor, about standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, about making sure good people didn't suffer while bad people prospered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Sleep well. Tomorrow's a new start. Lauren smiled through her tears and typed back. Thank you for everything. My father would be grateful. So am I. The response came immediately. Thomas would have done the same for my family. That's what good people do. We take care of each other. Lauren set down her phone and walked to the window, looking out at her quiet street. Somewhere in California, Derek was sitting in a cell, finally facing consequences he'd spent his entire life avoiding. Somewhere in the legal system, reforms were being written to prevent others from suffering what she'd suffered. And here, in her father's house, Lauren and her children were safe, protected by people who understood that justice wasn't just a word, it was a promise kept. Vincent Romano had kept that promise. And Lauren would spend the rest of her life teaching her children what her father and Vincent both knew. When you have power, you use it to protect people. When you have resources, you share them with those who need them. And when someone needs help, you don't hesitate. Because that's what good people do. They show up. They fight. They win. And they make damn sure that justice isn't just an idea. It's a reality delivered with absolute, unforgiving precision. Derek Hayes had learned that lesson the hard way. And anyone else who thought about stealing from the wrong family would learn it too. The message was clear, carved into California law and social consciousness. Some debts always get paid. Some promises are always kept. And some people, the good ones, never forget. Lauren turned off the lights and went to bed in her own house, in her own room, with her children sleeping safely down the hall. For the first time in weeks, she slept through the night without fear. Because Vincent Romano's promise, like her father's legacy, was unbreakable. Justice had been delivered, and it was absolute. If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Lauren's situation. Share this video with everyone who needs to know that justice is real. Smash that like button if you believe good people still exist. Turn on notifications because we've got more incredible stories coming that will restore your faith in humanity. Don't miss out. Subscribe today and join our community of people who believe in standing up for what's right. Let's hit 100K subscribers together. Fire flexed biceps, raised fist.